Welcome to the Spirit of Truth video podcast. Joining me today again is my good friend Brigitte Mars. We're super stoked to have her back. We've been good friends now since I got to move to Boulder, and she's got lots to share with me, and I look forward to learning a lot, and I hope you guys do too. So join me and Brigitte, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. So, like I said, joining us, we're so lucky to have her again, is Brigitte Mars. Welcome, Brigitte.
Thank you. My pleasure and honor, Derek.
Awesome. So, as you can see, we kind of moved the studio around as we had to move UBN studios, but we kept the library, and part of that is this culture of UBN, and I think it's part of the culture in Boulder, kind of starting with the Boulder School and other ventures out here that I'm so enamored with the family and being centered around contribution and contribution of truth. And so I just would, maybe if I could just start off with a little bit of your experience of what has kept you here in this area beyond just all like the social trends, but maybe in the relationships or something like that. Maybe if we could start with kind of the relationships that are keeping you here.
Sure. Well, I will say that in the early 70s, I lived in Miami and I had a vegetarian restaurant called the Supernatural. And we would serve this tea called Red Zinger tea. And it had these little tags on it. And the tags said things like, how many inhabited planets are there? Cut out the middleman and deal directly with God. And I remember like saying to my employees, I bet these people read the Urantia Book.
Oh, so you were already reading it?
I was already reading the book since I was 19, not since 1972, perhaps.
Okay.
And so I came to Boulder to go to massage school, and also because I heard there was a Urantia community here. I was already a medical herbalist, although young, but I thought if I go to massage school, I'll learn about anatomy, physiology, pathology. And, you know, I have two daughters. Their names are Sunflower and Rainbow. And so, you know, if you're going to name your kids Sunflower and Rainbow, you better live somewhere like really cool and avant-garde, because we did not fit in some of the places we lived, like
I can imagine.
Kansas and Missouri. But anyway, so I came here. My kids were like 5 and 6 months old. And I love that, you know, the beauty of the nature, I think, causes people to be conscientious of protecting the environment. I love that I can walk to 8 or 9 places to buy organic groceries. I've never learned to drive a car. There's great public transportation. And
Wow.
I feel that, you know, perhaps because of the beauty, that there's many spiritual traditions that have a headquarters here. And, you know, I like this, you know, there's a quote in the Urantia Book that we can have spiritual unity without spiritual uniformity. So I feel that there's a lot of respect that goes on in this community. And yet there's a quest for, wow, it's so beautiful here. Like, why are we here? Who made all this awesome stuff?
Oh, like the reflective existential questions that
Yes.
nature can provoke.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. Well, that's cool. So like from what you're telling me, I'm hearing that health has been a real important part of your life. If you guys have seen her previous interview on the show, you see that she's a master herbalist and has 14 books published. So we're dealing with the real deal. This isn't just fly-by-night type of stuff, just Instagram and Facebook posts.
Thank you.
So did your health and Urantia studies coincide in any way, and was it kind of enhanced here in Boulder, or what was kind of the protocol for that development?
Well, when I first started reading the book, I really didn't know anybody else that read it. I knew one person who lived on this commune that I was at in Missouri, who would always like tell me, you got to read this book. And, you know, I remember saying, why would I want to read this big book? Like, whoa. And then I also saw that it had a lot about Jesus at the end. And I thought, you know, I had a Catholic mother and a Jewish father.
Oh, wow.
So I was, you know, kind of a little resistant. And I have to be honest with you, Derek, I also thought, hey, I've taken a lot of LSD. I don't really think I need to read this big book. So I had a lot of resistance.
All right. So you're saying that the mind expanding drugs, you're kind of from your own personal perspective, maybe a little egoic or whatever, is like, yeah, you're not going to expand my brain more than it's already been expanded, buddy.
Yeah. But then, I remember saying to my friend who had turned me onto the book, I said, I wonder what happened to the dinosaurs. And he said, sister, anything you want to know that is of importance is in this book. So I remember, the book was $20, and $20 was very, very dear back then. I got a book and I started reading it, and I wasn't sure initially, but it did seem like it was so intelligent.
What was holding you back beyond just
that it was concepts beyond our normal vocabulary. So there was a lot of vocabulary, thought adjuster, and supreme ultimate, and ultimatons, and super universes, but I just persevered and started reading it. And of course, by the time I got to the Jesus Papers, I was ready. My heart was opened. And I will admit that I did read the book on mushrooms in my teepee by a kerosene lantern for quite a bit while my children were asleep. And I felt that helped me to open my mind and heart. And I felt like I was able to wrap my head around it. So, I know that might be a little shocking to people, but I'm just going to be out front and say that I came to the book through another path. And, I've never faltered from it. I love the book, and I talk about it a lot to my students in Naropa. I teach a class on the history of herbal medicine. And so I throw in a lot about, the history of humanity and,
tree of life, maybe
the tree of life, but also, this extraterrestrial regime, who were they? Why were they here? Where did they go?
Yeah, that's kind of like
will they come back?
I'm glad you're talking about it, because that's a sexy topic, like even with the Gaia studios here and everything. It's like everyone's talking about that ancient aliens.
And, I actually think, has Zachariah Sitchin, some of the answers that he's looking for in the Urantia book, and David Icke and all that. And I do have a few shows with Gaia TV. I'm in their Psychedelica series, and I'm in Inspirations, and in the Healing Matrix.
Awesome.
So you can check out my work on Gaia.
Awesome. Oh, I love seeing that's the whole point of this show, is people who have been kind of inspired, transformed, actualized through the Urantia book. Actualize it into their life, and then plant seeds into society, into the social network that's out there. So kudos to you.
And that was the Celestial Seasonings tea tag. Plant a seed and watch it grow.
Yeah. Well, kudos to Celestial Seasonings. I think a lot of this is the fruit of that labor, I would say, with those important personalities.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. So how are you, I'm really curious how you're incorporating maybe Urantia teachings, besides maybe in the history of herbs, what is it?
Yes.
And then, or herbal medicine, then, because I know you have apprentices, you have multiple things you're doing. You guide trips, you do a lot of cool things. So where do you, what's your perspective of weaving in revelation into your teachings and lessons and experiences?
Well, I think people are hungry for knowledge and answers. And, I used to look up at the stars, like many of us, and say, who am I? Why am I here? What happens when we die? Is there life on other worlds? And will I ever know? And so when I started reading the Urantia book, I said, well, maybe I don't have to die first. Maybe the answers I'm looking for are here. And so I've been, going to study group for many years, although I have 3 grandchildren. And one of my grandsons, when he was 4 years old, he taught himself to read.
Whoa.
And he was very into the Star Wars story. And he said, Grand-mère, I want to be a Jedi. And I said, you want to be a Jedi? We have this book written by ETs. And so since age 6, he has been reading the Urantia book. And
wow.
Bless her heart,
Whoa.
Jennifer Siegel has done a youth study group. And now he's 14, and he's been going to, youth study group. And so I've been taking over while Jennifer takes a little leave of absence. And I've been running a little teen study group for 3 of my grandchildren, and then my godson,
Cool.
Peter McIntosh. And so, with Jennifer, they've been reading the Jesus Papers, but with me, we've been reading about the Lucifer Rebellion, and we read the Adam and Eve Papers. We read the First Human Family, because I mean, this is a golden opportunity, and it doesn't hurt to have Jesus on your hard drive, first of all, because kids are being exposed to so much TV and video games and all that. And I'm really, really glad for that opportunity. And I'll keep it going on as long as I can. And
well, I'm curious how you introduced the Lucifer Rebellion to the youth.
Well, we read, starting out the Planetary Prince, we read all those chapters and, have discussion. And I also, make PowerPoints. I think PowerPoints with little GIFs and pictures, holds their interest.
Totally.
And, certainly discussion. And, one interesting thing that I just had this huge aha about is that because of the Lucifer Rebellion, we've been a quarantine planet for about 350,000 years. And guess what? We are quarantined on a quarantine planet right now. So it's like a double whammy.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about when I think about that, where you're about people in prison, because it's like you really see what it's like to be locked down and quarantined and controlled.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot to learn. And I think Jesus saw that, where he's kind of like, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, and, the last will be first in the kingdom, because there's such tough lessons to learn on this planet. But it makes all the difference because it's such rewards in the service that's granted upon you. Yes,
indeed. And, if we think about how hard was, Jesus's life when he was on this earth, he wasn't born rich. I mean, he lost his father when he was 14. He had to sell his instrument, his harp. And I love that he studied the stars and the wildflowers. So I remember thinking, well, that's a good reason to keep studying herbal medicine. And of course, the chapters on shamanism, that, herbs were a valid type of medicine. I feel like there's a lot of validation, and something that I presented at the International Herbal Conference was a talk called "For God's Sake, Feel Good." It's really okay to, work on our health, and it's not just, God is punishing you, or that you're sick. I know right now there's all this the virus, but I'm really into trying to empower people there's a lot of things outlined in there. I love that the Urantia Book says that Adam and Eve, ate raw foods. They imbibed the ministry of the tree of life, whatever that means. But that, they were eating fresh fruits and vegetables in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, she was making juices and nut milks. Yeah.
Yeah, and that, Adam and Eve, and I also love that when Adam and Eve toured the garden, Adam was able to look at the animals and know exactly their nature and their function just by looking at them. And in herbal medicine, there's this beautiful philosophy called the Doctrine of Signatures, that the imprint of the divine is on all living things. And so, for example, if you look at the word signature, the sign of nature, la signatura, you'd say kidney beans. Well, they look kind of like the kidneys. You know what? They are good for the kidneys. And cauliflower is really good for the brain. And nuts are really good for reproductive health. And seaweed is really good for the hair. And think about this, live foods. If you plant a raw sunflower seed, it has the potential to grow into a 10-foot tall plant. If you eat a roasted, salted one, it rots in the ground. So which food is going to make you feel more vital and empowered? So, hey, I love that, Eve really knew about the plant medicine. And, when they left the first garden, it wasn't so easy, and they had to include more herbs, and, things kind of degraded. Their kids, their diet got less and less pure as they had harder and harder times. But
well, how do you feel about? Because we're not of direct lineage to Adam and Eve, as maybe their children are. So for some people, or for all of us, we're just such a hodgepodge as well. So what do you feel is, from your perspective, is healthy to hold on to and conserve from our primitive days to what we can evolve to and add on to, whether it's epigenetically or philosophically, whatever it is, to maintain a healthy balance, a healthy life.
Well, and I do feel very connected to that lineage, whether it's real or not, but I do feel like I've got my hand in that, and I'd like to continue the mission.
Oh, okay.
So I feel very inspired by that. But, simple things like eating all the colors of the rainbow. When we eat all the different colors of the rainbow, we get different phytonutrients. And so one way that my grandkids check in with me is say, Grand-mère, I ate something red today and something blue and something purple. And I said, well, I want to hear about those greens tomorrow, something yellow. So that's a really simple thing. Also, I teach Chinese medicine as well as Western herbal medicine. And in Asian medicine, there's a strong philosophy that we need to eat all the 5 flavors. And as a culture, we're pretty fixated on sweet and salty, but unfortunately our sweet has been turned into the white sugar drug.
High fructose sweet.
Yeah. And then the salt, most salt is heated to 1400 degrees and all the minerals removed. No wonder people want to eat potato chips because they're looking for love in all the wrong places. The minerals got sold to the vitamin companies and you're eating this bleached white salt. So, eating more whole food. But again, we want to remember that Jesus said, it's more important what comes out of a person's mouth than what goes into it. So I don't want to make a religion about it, but Jesus did heal the sick. And I would like to see people take some responsibility for their health. We have many tools. There's many books. There's many, podcasts and things that we can learn about, using a healthy diet and healing herbs. And rather than only relying on pharmaceutical medicine, that really, I would like to teach people how to be their primary healthcare practitioner, and everything else is secondary.
Yeah, I like that, and I like how you said responsibility. Like there's a responsibility, and maybe that's part of owning your identity or like owning your expression. You can be in control of what goes in and goes out of your body. You have this like mastery instead of being beholden to whatever you're subjected to. So I appreciate that the spirit of individual initiative, creativity to find health and to be health. So I see here the example. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And, I really am encouraging all people, but, Urantia Book readers, rather than, blaming it on, bad luck or genetics. Like if we have some genetic proclivity to heart disease or cancer, then rather than thinking there's no way out, we might want to think about working really consciously to overcome that by choosing a healthful diet. And, when people say, but it hasn't been studied, we need to study it in a lab, I'd like to say, it's been used by millions of people for thousands of years. And I really like to partner with what our creator has created rather than something that some big pharma company has made. Because very often pharmaceutical companies are trying to isolate one alkaloid from a plant or synthesize it. And to me, that is turning a plant into a drug. And, one example, coca leaves are legal in South America. People use them for altitude sickness and hunger and energy and so forth. But in the 1800s, when they isolated the alkaloid cocaine, no longer is it a benevolent, nourishing plant that has vitamins and protein and minerals. Now it's an addictive drug. And so when we turn plants into drugs, you often get side effects that are not for the highest good and can really undermine people's well-being. And we know that addiction can really steal people's soul for a period of time. Yeah.
If it's not serving you that well. Well, that's hard, but I know that we even have addictions with even the way that we think. It's like what health is like body, mind, spirit, and the balance of that, this trinity, this holy trinity of true health. I've been really into this concept of what does it mean to get to the third circle, psychic circle of attainment, as it talks about in the Urantia Book, and how, you're granted this guardian seraphim, 2 of them, and self-acting thought adjuster.
Yes.
So what does that mean? What does that look like in a human? And I think that's part of my desire for this show is like, how can I share people that are there? almost. Not that I'm any judge or I can tell you, but with any authority of what that is, because it's also subjective for everybody's development. I can only reflect on my own. And I think though, back to what you're talking about is like owning your expression. And if you can have a really good, healthy one that does the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people for the greatest amount of time, why wouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't you seize that?
Well, one thing I've been talking a lot about lately is how can we create a better world out of this crisis that we're in now? And, who knows how long this is going to last or what our planet's going to look like in 6 months from now. But, and you talk about the 7 psychic circles. I often relate that, as I know a lot of Urantia Book readers do, to the 7 chakras. Okay. So like a real simple thing, because I think we really want to do well, is like if I think of red, or the base chakra, the bottom of our spine, our kundalini energy, our most basic primeval thing is to survive. So we get here on this planet and we need to learn how to survive. But here we are in this world, and maybe we're thinking about, how can I be safer? Maybe I should lock my doors. Maybe I should wear my seatbelt. Maybe I should take a martial arts class. Maybe I should, take steps to be protective, because, accidents can really age you and mess you up.
Well, plus there's valuable things.
Yes.
Like you be humans, other humans you want to keep safe, right?
Yeah. And then orange is about our community. And so one good thing about this plandemic, I like to call it, or plandemonium, however you want to look at it. I might say people I want to go back to red for a minute.
Okay.
We need to find other ways to move our bodies around and use more public transportation, carpooling, and one of the benefits is people are working from home now and driving less and finding out that there really is a lot that we can do on, high technology. Yeah. So maybe driving less. And again, I like to say I'm 67 years old. I've never learned to drive a car. It is possible to live on this earth. So driving less, moving our bodies around less. Okay. So orange, the second chakra, is going to be about community, knowing your neighbors. And I'm also going to say, having good relationships, honoring your commitments. So I would like to say that. So it's not just about your own survival, but also taking care of your community. And that might be your neighbors, and it might be your spiritual community, or people that you have like interests, your Urantia community, whatever that might be. And then yellow, the third center, corresponds to home and hearth. And I love the idea of creating a peaceful home and hearth. But this is also about our commitment to what we put in our body. And so I don't think that the only way to health is wear a mask, sanitize, and wash your hands and stay at home.
Well, it seems like that reflects kind of kill things off in order to stay healthy.
Right. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't do that. And I do wear a mask when I go to work. Right. But this is also about our commitment to, maybe I'm not going to put junk in my body. Maybe I'm going to eat less sugar. Maybe I'm not going to, do things that I know are undermining my health and maybe going to make me sick. I have to admit, people who eat junk food all the time and now they're worried about a virus, like maintaining our health should be like an everyday affair. And then green is about how can we live more green? A lot of people are staying home, cleaning. But if you're cleaning with polluting things and polluting the air and the water.
In your brain, probably.
I don't think, those that made this beautiful planet are going to appreciate that. So you can clean just about everything in your home with baking soda and apple cider vinegar, and you can buy natural products. And then blue is about using your voice and creating beauty. I mean, the Urantia Book talks a lot about the pursuit of truth, beauty, and goodness. So how can you use your voice, your expression, to whatever it is, to share a podcast, to write letters to the editor, to share things of merit on Facebook, to inspire people, and also to use our words consciously, maybe speaking more positively rather than I'm so disorganized, maybe saying I am taking steps to be more organized, and maybe using less profanity And
I got to work on that one.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are saying I've been using more profanity lately, and maybe there's reasons for it. But to, kind of, speak with kindness and with truth.
Yeah.
And then this is about enhancing our intelligence. Like, while we have this time, what are you reading? What are you putting into your consciousness? If we're only, watching movies that are violent and reading books that make us more scared and more paranoid, and so this is an opportunity to choose things that are wise, that are going to help us to enhance our intelligence. And I do want to say, I think it is very Jedi to speak multiple languages. So when my partner and I watch a movie, we watch it with subtitles, because it's great the more people we can speak to, the more of a peacemaking effort. And the Urantia book says, the idea of one world language is going to be a step towards world peace. And then, the crown chakra, the seventh psychic circle, this is about our commitment to divinity. Like, I think a lot of people they're so afraid that they might die because they haven't really paid attention to their spiritual nature. And so, what do you believe? Maybe this is a time to explore, what do I believe? To know that you can be comfortable with prayer, with meditation, with connecting to source, because we're all going to die. And I think a lot of people are afraid that they might die suddenly and not be spiritually ready. And, I always remember Jesus's last words, because I was in a plane crash. And I remember saying, into your hands, I commend my spirit. And I thought that was going to be the end. But I thought, well, that seems like a good last thing to say. But
he's like, don't worry, it's okay. You don't have to.
But the plane crashed in a swamp and we all survived. But it's total the plane. Yeah.
Wow, that's an exciting
But I was ready,
thing.
And I'm not afraid to fly now because I've already kind of been ready.
How old were you when that happened?
Rainbow was 7 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
So it was 40 years ago. She's a supermodel, so I'm not supposed to say her age. So
her daughter's hot.
Rainbow Mars. Google her.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. And I was also thinking, when you're sharing all the chakra system, also how that can relate to the adjutant mind spirits, and how we're integrated with the mother into life itself. And so I was thinking like Mr. Kitty running around here and stuff, and how social he can be. And going back to, your Adam and Eve endeavors.
Yes.
How close they were with animals. And so it's also reflecting on seeing the development towards actualization of an individual. And I know I keep harping on this, but I know you're an educator, and that's kind of what education is all about, is getting someone to that self-actualized place where they can then lead and for their own self and their own identity and things like that. So when in your education process, do you ever, or even when you're teaching the youth groups, the youth study groups, do you see a change, a transformation in people that you can maybe share with us, that something happened there?
Well, I have had a number of my students say they've gotten the Urantia book, or they've come to a study group, or they've put it on their phone. Isn't that great that there's a Urantia phone app? But I know that it's helped a little bit, and so I've maybe helped a few readers, find what they're looking for. Because, when I look at young, educated, upwardly mobile people today, I think they want to be spiritual, but they don't want organized religion, because it kind of smacks of, something that they grew up with that really, was very limited, or preachy,
stifling,
or hellfire and brimstone and all that. And so, I find that a lot of the young people, they're looking towards the East. It's like, it's yoga or kirtan, or they're wearing little statues of, Shiva and Hanuman around their neck. And, I'm not going to diss that, but I don't think that any of them really, well, what can you tell me about, Lord Krishna or Shiva? It's all good, but I think that maybe feels safer, or, and again, having grown up with two great religions and saw how my parents respected each other. And, I went to catechism and Sabbath school. But that really inspired me, because I was really just a seeker, and I teach at a Buddhist university, Naropa University. And, I love a lot of the things in the Hindu tradition, yoga and Ayurvedic medicine and meditation and all that. So yeah, I'm kind of
You're a true interfaither, man.
I'm an interfaither, but I do feel that people are so hungry for spiritual revelation, and they're looking and looking and looking. And, I'm going to give you one example. I had a friend who was told by a psychic, you need to go to India and you need to find the temple of the beetle god, and you must find the high priest of the temple of the beetle god, and he will have a message for you. And so my friend did 40 massages a week and made enough money to go to India.
Okay.
And he hired a driver, and he found a temple of the beetle god, and he found the high priest, and he had a message for him. Be here now. It's like, I could have told you that, Ram Dass said that, didn't you read the book? So, but I mean, people will go to such lengths seeking for something that's available in a $20 book that could, open your eyes.
And at the same time, and I love that story, thank you, at the same time can take maybe a fortune cookie advice and make it like their life-changing event too,
So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, man, getting people up there. And I would say also what I've noticed from that is that there's this tendency to maybe shortcut the actual ugly work that's necessary for self-mastery. Because it's like we all want to share all our strengths out there, whether it's copying a quote and just putting it out there, even if it's not even reflecting our strengths. It's something valuable. We want to contribute value. But it's not like you want to live stream you trying to work on your belly, or you trying to not swear so much, or these might be boring things, but they're so important for this self-work and this self-development that my opinion is that if we can focus on those little things, that we don't go jumping towards the extremities of wearing obscure idols. Not that I have anything against other religions, obviously, but just wearing obscure things, and we don't even understand what they are. If we're going to have spiritual connection towards some kind of organization, then we should do the work to know what it is. We can't be ignorant in our shortcuts also. And I think that what maybe you come across is that a lot of humans are shortcutting their health. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to go with what they're being fed versus working out what they need.
And, I wanted to share that another way that I get to introduce the Urantia book is I am an end-of-life doula. And I was very involved in the natural home birth movement, but now at this age, I'm going to a lot more memorials than blessing ways, although I
graduations
go to a few of those. And the story in the Urantia book about life after death, it's so beautiful that I really feel if I can help people to meet that challenge with less fear and grace.
Can you give us a bite of maybe something that you might say to a worried daughter or son?
Well, that I'll say, I read this book called the Urantia Book, and there's some wonderful chapters in there about the mansion worlds. And again, I guess we won't know till we get there. I like to, stay open, but the Urantia Book says you will see your loved ones again, and that angels help to transport souls. And, the story about we land on the sea of glass and you have 10 days to look up anybody who might already be there. I mean, it sounds so fantastical. But the idea that we do have eternal life as long as you have a flicker of faith, so you don't have to be so afraid. But, usually why people are hiring me to be an end-of-life doula is just to start the dialogue about, have you thought about what you would want at your memorial? Would you want any particular songs or passages read, or people to speak? And have you thought about, what would you want done with your body? And so, to get that, because it's icky. And, but just like childbirth, if you don't plan how you want to do it and do the prenatal yoga and drink the raspberry leaf tea, it'll probably be decided for you at the hospital. Right? And so I'm trying to empower people that you can also make some choices that could help you to have a more peaceful exit with less fear. And, if you are open to it, you might find reading the papers about the mansion worlds to be very comforting. And I've actually encouraged people to read it out loud while someone's, bedridden.
Oh, yeah. Read it to them.
to read it to them. And it's just like really, calming. They're hearing the sound of your voice and opening the passages that, wow, there is a plan in the universe. And, dying really can't be any scarier than being born, because that's kind of unpredictable.
I think maybe, and this is just me, what the fear about dying is the way that you die. Like, how painful will it be, or something like that. It's like the crossing over. That's cool, man. That sounds like a trip through the universe. But nobody wants that pain and suffering type of thing, even though life is pretty much a lot of pain and suffering.
And birth is painful too.
Oh man, yeah.
And fortunately, the universe gives us this amazing chemical called dimethyltryptamine, also known as DMT, is produced. I hear it's actually produced in our lungs, but it's present in our cerebral spinal fluid, and in our pineal gland and pituitary gland. But that comes in when we are born, when we give birth, especially in a natural childbirth, and it also comes in when we die. And there's also some other things in life. Certain psychedelics contain dimethyltryptamine, like ayahuasca and psilocybin mushrooms, and it actually is pervasive in nature. There's many, many plants that contain it. Sensitive plant and mimosa and Canaria reed grass. So the universe, or at least this planet, abounds with psychotropic plants that can help us to surrender into the unknown. But, when you think about that in the natural world, a lot of animals eat each other. And it seems like, oh, that's so terrible. Run, little moose, run, little moose. Next thing you know, there's a little mountain lion, tearing its throat out. And I do believe that chemical reminds us to surrender. We're born, we die, and it's all going to be okay, that there's a plan.
Yeah. Oh man, I've had experiences like that. Like, I don't know if you guys ever gotten jumped before, but I've gotten jumped before, like in the street. And you can kind of, like, when you're just not noticing it, and then bam, right, it hits you. And that's where like the voice comes in too. And it's not surrender to you getting your ass kicked. It's like, I remember for me, it was more like, you're going to be okay. Just be like, you don't need to fight back. Just be smart. Like, be safe. It's always this like guidant, patient, safe voice, and it's never like fight back and kill, it's like that. It's just like always leading like Jesus was. It wasn't just be a victim, but guidance towards peaceful creativity or peaceful action. It's never. And so what you got me thinking about is this. So in this surrender in the universe, our personal contribution is still so important and so valued. So I think it's important for people to understand about surrender is that there's an empowering property with surrender too. It's not taking away your contribution towards someone else's occupation of you. It's an enhancement of your contribution by relinquishing your control need and more of how can I cooperate and go with that which is.
And I think it makes the pain hurt less.
Yeah.
And, believe me, there have been times in life where remembering like Jesus died on the cross, well, that must have really been a horrible, mean way to death. And it's probably not going to be that bad for most of us. But boy, why would people even think of doing such a horrible thing? And, I love that the Urantia Book says that, that was humans doing. That was not God's will. That was not the blood sacrifice that we needed.
Yeah, God wasn't asking for sacrifices up there.
No, it's like, but humanity, like I say, quarantine on a quarantine planet. And so, every day my prayer is, I'm here to help. Let me know what I can do. And
yeah, I like that intention. I also like what you were talking about earlier is that, being on double lockdown, how are you improving yourself even in that scenario? Like, what new skills are you creating? How are you coming out better? So I personally feel when this smoke clears and the dust settles, those who have acquired new skills for the next stage are the ones who are going to rise to influence. So in my interest, I know I need to up my game as far as whatever skills I'm creating and my contribution, get ready to really unfold the next design. Level up, one might say. Go to the next level.
I love that.
So I like that. I like that perspective of even if we're in quarantine, double quarantine, triple quarantine, whatever it is, since we got God inside of us and this creator inside of us, man, you still can't hold us back. As Jesus said, all things good are on your side. Everything that's important is on your side working for you.
Mm-hmm. And so, I think that is really noble. And I'm really glad for you to remind people, like, use this time wisely, because we may never have another time like this. And okay, you got your house clean, but maybe you have time to read the rest of the Urantia book, or to learn another language, or to start that art project, or finish something. I'm actually, I just finished, a rewrite of my book, Addiction Free Naturally. And I'm also working on a racy 60s memoir called Wildflower Child. A tale of sex, psychedelics, and natural foods.
Partially true.
Yeah, it's pretty
based on the
truth.
truth.
But I do have a chapter in there called "Hippie Chick Seeks Revelation" about how I found the Urantia book.
So, did you put out a classified ad?
Well, I didn't, but it's kind of a play on that.
Mentally, you did.
Yeah, I did.
You're a seeker all the way,
Yeah.
and then so how do you think about, like, this is always a fun one to talk about. Might sound a little woo woo out there, but how the angels play a role in people finding the Urantia book.
Because I had a Catholic mother and a Jewish father, one thing that they agreed on was angels. And so whenever they would go on a trip, they would bring me back an angel statue. And my house, I know you've been to, it's actually like a
Fairy
museum
kingdom
of angels.
Yeah.
And I like fairies and nature spirits and all winged creatures. But to me, they're such a reminder. And I love that, the Urantia book says that what people perceive as their wings are actually energy shields. And they don't all necessarily have them. But like the energy shields have to, transport souls to another world. And angels can fly faster than light and sound. And but I feel very comforted by that. And I think almost all religions have some sort of angelic repertoire, some more so than others. But again, I love all the ways that we can find similarities in one another.
So back to the question, how are they helping you, or what do you think about their process in finding the Urantia book or revelation? And it's
I think, like, so often that angels have helped me, and I ask for their protection. And, one thing, this is maybe like a simple thing, but I teach my students, like, and I almost always do it. You get in a car and you just, we often just do an om. And I know om, rather than think that's a Hindu thing, it's actually the sound of everything in the universe all at once. It's the baby crying. It's the drill. It's the sirens, it's everything all at once. And I really find that very comforting. And when people om, it creates a vibration in your pineal gland. But when we get in the car, we'll often just do an om and visualize surrounding the vehicle with light. But just yesterday, my partner opened up an umbrella and it almost poked somebody's eyes out. It's like, oh, thank God the angels were there. But I think that there's a way of invoking angelic help. They are here. And, I love the work of Timothy Wiley, who wrote a bunch of books, and he's very much into angels. So I think they're out there if you want to call them in. I mean, they are out there, and they work in pairs, and that's a really comforting thing. And there's all kinds of angels of health, angels of churches, angels of messenger angels.
Have you ever said, angels of health, I'm working with you, or I want to work with you?
Yeah, I have. And I feel very connected to them. And I think that they feel very welcome, but it's kind of free for the asking,
Yeah, I can imagine that they could use all the help they could get.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have someone on board. I know I've personally consecrated my service and skill set and abilities to that work, my own intentions of creating the network and having it grow. But a part of that is it's like recruiting talent. And I think I'm gaining this understanding of how the angels maybe recruit talent. And that's why I keep harping on the sense of, does this person own their message? And so when you were talking about the chakra over here in the throat and this expression, it seems like there's a really tangible level that one gets at. Like, when did you realize that you needed to teach?
I think my early teaching was when my daughters were Girl Scouts and Brownies. Sunflower was in a brownie troop, and I would give little herb walks and show the kids the plants. But I remember when I came to Boulder, I went on an herb walk with somebody, and she said a few of the plants wrong. Like she thought violet was plantain. I said, I need to step in here.
Okay.
So I think, my early 20s, I started teaching. And, a great way to learn a subject well is to offer to teach a class on it. I've been asked to teach classes about things that maybe I didn't know that well initially. Like someone asked, mystery writers go, can you teach a class on plant poisons? And, I'm not really up on poisoning anybody, but I thought, oh, it's a gig. It pays. I'm going to really research this. What is the difference between belladonna and arsenicum? And
well, you have the capacity to really research deeply.
So I researched it, and then I was able to offer a class on it. But I feel that I've written 14 books, and every one of those books was like a college education of that subject, whether it be herbs or reproductive health or children's health or living foods. So
that's cool, man.
And again, education's really changing now. There's so much available to us. Years ago, you have to go to the library and take books out and bring them home. And, now there's no excuse to be ignorant, as early, not as much excuse to be ignorant, because the information's all there. And that's why I encourage people to start taking some responsibility for your health, and know that the health of our planet is intertwined with our personal health. Because when we say, no, I'm going to use, herbs for medicine, maybe we're helping there to be a field of, lavender or lemon balm or echinacea out there, rather than a toxic chemical company spewing chemicals that end up being recalled. Call 1-800-BAD-DRUG. I mean, don't you see that on TV?
Yeah,
I hear you do.
All sorts of lawsuits over there. I don't watch TV, but I know what you mean from my old school days. Wow. And I like that you're talking about this concept of responsibility and the part and the whole relationship too, because so often we kind of just do the part and we don't realize its relationship to the greater whole. Mm-hmm. And how advancement is really like collective advancement, not like one person all the way ahead. And then, because I kind of feel that's where we get into the challenges that we're currently trying to navigate. If there's a certain level of narcissism, of dominance, then there's a gap of understanding, experience, and challenge. And so I feel like maybe in this society, we have a lot of people who maybe haven't gotten a lot of opportunity, but have gotten a lot of opportunity for challenge and hardship. Mm-hmm. And then we've gotten a lot of people who have gotten a lot of opportunity, and maybe privilege or whatever you want to call it, but not the experience in the challenge. Mm-hmm. So here you have two groups of people who have something to contribute. And if that can be blended, it's like we need that balance. And that's what I liked about Jesus's life. And I like about Jesus's life is that challenge, like you were talking about, tons of things to get over, loss and stuff, but still an education in scripture, and good parents that educated him too. And he was able to apply that knowledge as well to whatever opportunities he had, he took advantage of. So I appreciate the call to accountability. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping that, we're going to wind up here, but if maybe you could leave us with some parting words of how can we boost our health now? What do we need to do to really feel good about our health?
Okay. Well, health is really a blessing, and it's something well worth working for. And again, whatever you've come into this planet with, genetics, or your parents didn't teach you about that, you can still learn. And there's so many things you can do. So I'm really big on, as I said, eating all the colors of the rainbow, eating lots of raw food. Living food that is not cooked, because when you cook things, you kill the enzymes, and enzymes reduce inflammation. I don't eat 100% raw food, but I do try to eat salad every day, drink green juice every day. And you know what? I am really big on eating weeds. So this is a really huge thing
like
we
dandelions?
Can do. Dandelions, malva, plantain, violet. So the weeds are Jedi survivor plants. They survive adversity. Dandelions survive drought. They survive the lawnmower, people stepping on them, dog pee, growing through the cracks in the sidewalks. And I feel amazing from eating wild plants. And all of our cultivated plants are descendants from wild ancestors. So when I make a salad and everything was growing like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour before you're eating it, you don't get that at the store. So the amount of life force. So I would love to see people creating more edible lawns. I actually have an article online. It's called Get Off Your Grass and Create an Edible Lawn.
Cool.
And I saw some edible things in your lawn here. I'm going to show you what they are.
All right.
So that's a big one. If you have water to throw away, throw it on a plant. We're going to need to respect water a lot more. We vote with our dollars. So when we buy the organic apples, we're supporting sustainability and safety for the farmers and the workers and also the future of our children and grandchildren. Another thing I always like to say, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is now. So plant some fruit trees. So these are simple things that we can do. And, pray before you eat. I really think that's a simple thing, even if you're eating by yourself or with, a single parent and a kid, teach them. And I kind of gotten my grandkids into I know we're at a restaurant, but we're going to just pray for a minute. We are so blessed to have food. Not everybody does. And, if you're watching the mainstream media, it's kind of hinting at hungry times might be coming. So learn to identify what's growing out there in the wild, plant a garden, start imbibing freshness. And, there's a lot of hints in the Urantia book. Eat more salad. Eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. Learn to make nut milk. And I also think that, just like Adam was able to recognize what the nature of an animal was just by looking at it. Well, I think when people support factory farming of animals, chickens that are in cages so small they can't turn around and they're debeaked and their feet cut off. I mean, that's a hell life. You're not going to get health from animals that are filled with anxiety and trauma. So if you do want to eat animal products, support the righteous farmers that are, doing things more humanely. I'm not saying that everyone has to be vegetarian, although I lean towards that myself. But I think that we are picking up on anxiety and depression and perhaps even cruelty from that kind of animal husbandry. And I think that we vote with our dollars. So let's support the high way, the best way, the way that is right, that would be pleasing to our Creator as best we can.
Thank you, Brigitte. Those are great, wise words.
Thank you.
Appreciate the responsibility and the contribution that you always provide.
Thank you for yours, Derek.
All right. Well, it's good to be part of this team and this family. Thank you guys for joining us. It's been awesome. It's been awesome having Brigitte here with us. Thank you for all your support, all you guys contributing and just giving all that feedback and sharing. So please don't forget to subscribe, share, and we'll have a lot more content for you coming into the future. So God bless you guys and take care. And thank you again, Brigitte.
Blessed be.